Wow, you really weren't kidding when you said you loved a good story.
You've given us quite the reading list for this deep dive.
Excerpts from myths and fairy tales and folklore.
It is really a grab bag of storytelling traditions.
I have to admit, I am excited to try to find the connections between them all.
I'm willing to bet we find quite a few.
Okay.
It's remarkable how these stories, even though they come from different cultures and different times,
Right.
so often grapple with these same fundamental human experiences,
Yeah, it really is like we're all working from the same playbook.
just with different costumes and set designs.
And speaking of dramatic makeovers,
One of the themes that I noticed more than anything else was this idea of transformation.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't love a good transformation story? Whether it's a magic spell or a hidden identity or a character undergoing a major life change.
these tales really seem to tap into something deeply resonant inside us,
Absolutely. The idea of transformation, I think, speaks to our anxieties
but also our aspirations about change.
about identity, about the consequences of our choices.
And what's fascinating is how different cultures use different tools in their narratives to explore these themes.
Okay.
Take, for example, the story The Skinny Stag.
Okay.
Here we have a character who literally wills himself into becoming this powerful stag.
Yeah.
There's no magic involved.
Really?
Just sheer willpower,
Wow.
fueled by a dream.
And he goes from this like cowering creature in a cave to suddenly facing down wolves.
That's right.
It's a real underdog story, and I think it speaks to our desire for self-improvement and for the courage to confront our fears.
But then you have a story like the tale of Prince Darling. He's given a magic ring to help him be a better ruler.
Sounds like a pretty sweet deal, right?
It would seem so.
Yeah,
Yet he chooses to cast the ring aside.
he does.
He prioritizes immediate pleasure over long-term responsibility.
And he turns into a beast.
He does. He transforms into a literal beast.
Talk about your cautionary tales.
It makes you wonder if the story is trying to tell us something about the seductive nature of instant gratification
That's right.
and the dangers of unchecked impulses.
Precisely. These stories often serve as a form of cultural self-critique.
Exploring the potential pitfalls of our desires.
But not all transformations are so literal.
That's true.
The story of the white cat, for instance, plays with this idea of transformation in a
Okay.
much more subtle but equally powerful way.
Right. She's a seemingly ordinary cat.
But she ends up accomplishing these incredible tasks for the prince she loves.
On the surface, it's a charming story about this clever cat.
But there's something more going on.
Exactly. There's a deeper layer of meaning at play here.
Yeah.
She downplays her own abilities,
Claiming to rely on other cats.
when in reality she's the one with the magical talents.
She's got it.
It's almost as if the story is inviting us to look beyond just surface appearances.
And recognize the quiet forms of power that often go unnoticed.
I like that hidden depths.
And this theme of hidden depths actually connects us to the tale of Sigurd and the giantess and the granite boat,
Okay.
while the white cat undergoes a more symbolic transformation.
Sigurd's is a physical trial of courage and ingenuity.
Okay.
He faces down these terrifying forces.
Ultimately proving his mettle.
It's interesting to see how these two different cultures, through their unique storytelling traditions.
Arrive at a similar theme.
Yeah.
Transformation as a test, a revelation of their inner strength.
But as the story of Turkey Buzzard reminds us,
Not all transformations lead to positive outcomes.
that's right,
He's blinded by vanity, and he makes a series of just terrible choices.
that ultimately sealed his own tragic fate.
It's a stark reminder that the transformations we undergo
Whether literal or metaphorical, are often a reflection of our choices.
and the values that drive them.
Okay.
And that brings us to another fascinating thread that's woven through many of these tales.
This complex interplay of power, cunning, and moral ambiguity.
It's like they say out there, it's a jungle out there.
And these stories with their tricksters and heroes and
Yeah.
monsters and kings, they offer us a glimpse into the many ways that we navigate these complexities of power.
Absolutely. They remind us that power can be a very fickle thing.
Often residing in unexpected places.
Yeah.
And sometimes the most effective way to gain the upper hand is actually through wit and through cunning,
Okay.
as we see with that legendary trickster figure, Klakanyana.
Fakanyana was a character who really stood out to me.
This is a character who seems to turn every encounter,
Whether it's with cannibals or baboons,
Man.
into an opportunity for a clever trick.
yes,
You've got to admire his audacity.
in Indeed. He really embodies that idea of using intelligence to outmaneuver.
Those who might hold a physical or social advantage.
Okay.
But his stories also kind of invite us to consider.
What are the ethical implications of some of his actions?
Oh, that's interesting.
At what point does cunning cross the line into manipulation?
It's like that story that we have in this collection about the hare tricking the crocodile.
To give him a ride across the river.
Right.
He gets what he wants.
But he gets it through deception.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about that fine line between cleverness and deceit.
And that's where these stories, I think, become more than just entertaining tales.
Okay.
They challenge us to sort of examine our own moral compasses.
And confront those gray areas of human behavior.
And even a god can fall prey to this, right?
That's right.
I mean, look at Loki's wager with the dwarfs.
That's a classic example of how even the most cunning of plans can backfire.
When they're driven by ego or by a lack of foresight.
It's a good reminder that intelligence without wisdom can be a dangerous thing.
Certainly can.
But speaking of forces to be reckoned with.
We can't forget about Baba Yaga.
Right.
Now she's not your typical fairy tale villain.
She is not. That's what makes her such a compelling figure.
So what is it about her that makes her so different?
Well, Baba Yaga embodies both danger and possibility at the same time.
Okay.
She's powerful and she's demanding.
But she's also surprisingly open to being impressed.
Really?
As we see in that story where she challenges those heroes to find the fountain of healing waters.
And she rewards them when they succeed.
She does.
It's almost like she respects those who can match her wit and her determination.
Even if they're challenging her authority.
Precisely, Baba Yaga, with her unpredictable nature and ancient wisdom.
Represents a kind of wild card in these stories.
A wild card, I like that.
She reminds us that power can take many forms.
And that often true strength lies in recognizing the power of others.
It's like those optical illusions.
Where what you see depends entirely on your perspective.
It really is.
These stories encourage us to look beyond just those surface appearances.
And question our assumptions about who really holds the power.
That's a great point.
But you know what else these stories emphasize?
What's that?
The importance of our word. The importance of keeping our promises.
Yes.
I mean, oaths and vows and pinky swears.
They carry a lot of weight in these tales.
They do. These stories elevate promises to this almost sacred level.
And they show how deeply intertwined they are with things like honor and trust.
And the very fabric of human relationship.
He's sometimes breaking a promise.
Even one that's made in a moment of desperation.
Can have really, really bad consequences.
As we see with Don Tristan.
Oh, right.
He tries to weasel his way out of his promise to the Virgin Mary. And let's just say it doesn't end well for him.
It's like the story is saying, don't make promises you're not prepared to keep.
That's right.
Especially not to divine beings.
Especially not to divine beings.
But even seemingly insignificant promises can have a ripple effect.
They can. And that actually reminds me of that charming tale you mentioned earlier.
Which one?
About King O'Toole and his goose.
Oh, right. You wanted to talk about that one?
I did. It's from that book, Stories and Legends of the Irish Peasantry.
Yes, that's right.
It's a delightful story.
That I think highlights this interconnectedness of actions.
Okay.
And this importance of honoring even our smallest commitments.
So what happens? Does he break a promise to his goose?
Not quite. He makes a promise to a saint, a seemingly insignificant one at that.
Okay.
But as the story unfolds,
we see how this one small act sets off this chain of hilarious and unexpected events.
Proving that even the most casual agreements can have unforeseen consequences.
It's like that butterfly effect idea where every little action, no matter how small, can have these far-reaching implications.
Exactly.
But it's not all doom and gloom, is it?
No, it's not.
I mean, there are stories where promises are used for good.
Absolutely.
To protect or to inspire.
We see that in the story of the wise boar who, in his dying moments, extracts this promise from a lion.
To protect his mate.
Wow.
It's a really poignant example of how a promise can be an act of profound love and selflessness.
It's a stark contrast to that story of the fox and the butter.
Where he uses an oath deceitfully to try to cover up his tracks.
Right. It's fascinating how these stories present us with both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
They show how promises can be tools for good, but also tools for manipulation.
And even that simple story of the monkey and the jellyfish.
Which emphasizes how even these casual promises made without much thought still hold weight and should be honored.
That's right.
And he breaks his word to that jellyfish, and let's just say...
he faces the consequences.
He does.
It all boils down to integrity, doesn't it?
It really does.
These stories remind us that our words have power.
And that honoring our commitments,
no matter how small, is fundamental to building trust.
And really ultimately shaping who we are.
I agree. And they reveal the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and who we want to be.
It's true. It's like we're holding up a mirror.
To our own beliefs and motivation.
Exact.
And when we see a character,
grappling with a dilemma that maybe we faced in our own lives.
right,
It makes us think about the choices that we've
it
made.
makes you re-examine those crossroads.
Yeah.
These stories offer us this safe space to explore
All these complex moral questions.
and grapple with the consequences
Ren.
without actually having to live through them.
That's true.
It's like this framework for
The
understanding.
best and worst parts of ourselves.
It's like they're saying, here's the human heart.
With all of its complexities and contradictions.
In all its messiness,
Yeah.
and maybe by recognizing those
So
struggles.
we can gain some wisdom.
Yeah.
We can gain some self-awareness.
So having spent all this time with these characters,
And their journeys.
yes.
What stands out to you the most?
You know, I am continually fascinated by all the different ways that we find to address these universal questions.
We've got tricksters, we've got heroes,
Oaths that are broken and promises that are kept.
transformations that are terrifying and transformations that are inspiring.
Right.
It's a testament to the power of storytelling
It really is.
to capture the human experience.
And for anyone listening,
If you'd like to dive in even further
we encourage you to seek out the full versions of these stories.
and see what other treasures you might uncover. It's like we've only just scratched the surface.
It's a whole world of wisdom
Absolutely. And in those further explorations,
where you'll discover something new about yourself.
about the stories that you carry within
Okay.
and the choices that shape your own journey.
I like that.
Yeah.
So until next time,
Keep asking questions
keep exploring.
and keep those stories alive.